Do you have a ton of container plants and you're sick and tired of fertilizing by hand? This video is for you. It's going to be a game changer. I have an extremely large collection of rare fruiting plants, and I used to walk around with a 2-gallon watering can, watering my plants by hand, and it would take hours to do this. And I'm not kidding, hours of my life. So I started researching alternative methods of fertilizing, and I came across these fertilizer injectors. And these literally hook up to your water source and have a concentrated form of liquid rooting hormone. And you can just walk around fertilizing all of your plants and not thinking about measuring out your ratios of fertilizer to water in your watering can anymore. I mean, it's a complete game changer. One of the biggest lessons you can learn in life is that your time is the most important thing that you have. So in anything that you're doing, even your hobbies, if you can save time to do things that you really like from all the monotonous work, then that's exactly what you should do. And this fertilizer injector is going to do that for you, okay? This is a brand called Nutri. There's much more expensive fertilizer injectors out there that are maybe a little more high quality materials, but if you set this thing up properly, it's gonna do the job just fine. Now, one thing I will say about this fertilizer injector is that the intake and the outtake threads are plastic. So when you're putting your hose on there, it doesn't really have a good grip, and the water pressure will actually just blow the hoses off. And that's a problem that I was continuously dealing with. So what I did is I went to my local big box store and I bought some of this tubing right here, and this tubing can actually fit right over those threads. And then I have one of these little brackets here that I could tighten and hold those hoses there, and now I don't have to worry about that issue anymore. And I still have, you know, my little threads, which are brass on the bottom, and the hoses can just go, you know, right on these. And it's much stronger. I don't have to worry about, you know, when I flip the switch on my watering nozzle, the pressure building up and blowing these hoses off. So that's one thing that I would highly recommend doing, is don't put your hose directly on these threads, because they are going to end up being stripped, and it's going to be a massive issue. So the way this thing works is that you have an intake hose, and that's just water that's coming directly from your water source. And it actually even has an arrow right here to show you what direction, so it's completely idiot proof for guys like me. And then you have your outtake. So it's a 2-hose system from the water source to the injector, and from the injector to your hose nozzle that you're going to be using to water your plants. It also has this little hose right here that goes from the bottom of the fertilizer injector into your concentrated liquid fertilizer. So this thing runs on percentages. So whatever, you know, like let's just say you want to do like a 1/4 teaspoon of fertilizer per gallon of water, you will set this percentage up so that it meets your needs for whatever specific fertilizer you're using. And honestly, that's the most difficult part of this entire process. Outside of that, it's really simple. I went and I got a 5-gallon bucket from a local big box store, mixed my fertilizer concentrate, and you can use whatever fertilizer you want to use as long as it's water soluble. So you could use Miracle-Gro if you wanted to, because you know you can get that at any store. You can get that at Walmart, whatever your local store is, they're going to have Miracle-Gro. But set it up specifically for whatever plants you're fertilizing. Get one of these buckets, mix the concentrate, and that's the great thing about these fertilizer injectors. This whole bucket is filled with fertilizer, and it's gonna last a really long time, because I actually have this solution coming out in a 1:50 ratio. So I have this big 5-gallon bucket of fertilizer, and it's taking a very small percentage of that, putting it directly into the hose water, which is perfectly measured for me to fertilize all of my plants. So I don't have to worry about burning the roots, burning the leaves, killing my plants with too much fertilizer, and it makes the job so simple. So if you guys are not using one of these, you really need to. Once you get the ratios of water to fertilizer for your concentrate mathematically reasoned, then, I mean, it's very straightforward and simple to use. So because this gets a little bit confusing, I'm going to tell you guys exactly how to mix this on a 1% setting, because basically this injector is going to take a percentage of what's in this bucket. So we need to know how to mix a concentrated solution of liquid fertilizer in this bucket so that this can pull it out at a 1% concentrate, or a 1% solution. So if you come in here, we've got this Miracle Grow, and I'm using Miracle Grow purely because this is what a lot of people use. And you can see for indoor plants, it says we need a half teaspoon per gallon of water every 2 weeks, okay? So if we're gonna make a concentrated form for this bucket of this, if we were using this 5-gallon bucket just as a watering can, meaning I was just gonna walk around and dump out of this bucket onto my plants, and I'm gonna fertilize it correctly, we need a half teaspoon per gallon. So a half teaspoon times 5 gallons of water, because that's what's gonna be in here, that's what the contents are, that's gonna be 2.5 teaspoons, okay? And because this fertilizer injector is gonna pull it out at a 1% solution, we need to multiply the contents of this bucket by 100, okay? Because there's 100 parts and it's gonna pull out 1 out of 100 parts, okay? So when we do that, we go from 2.5 teaspoons for this entire 5-gallon bucket. We need to multiply it by 100. That's 250 teaspoons or 5 cups, okay? If we take 215 teaspoons and say how many cups, or how many teaspoons are in a cup, okay? And we multiply that by 5, we're gonna get 5 cups, okay? It's basically a cup per gallon. So if that doesn't make sense, you guys can ask me questions in the comments, but essentially what you're gonna do is whatever, so if you were using a 1-gallon watering can, okay? We know that we need a half teaspoon per gallon, and you have 1 gallon, so you're only putting a half teaspoon in there. But if you were gonna hook that 1 gallon of water to this, and it's pulling it out at a 1% solution, we would essentially need to take a half teaspoon and multiply it by 100, okay? And that's how you're gonna figure out what your solution is. But I recommend, if you want it to last a long time, you get one of these 5-gallon buckets from your big box store. Cut a little hole in the lid here so you can stick this little sucker in there, and it's gonna pull out that concentrate and dilute it to a 1% solution, and that's what's gonna be going through your hose every gallon of water. So that's how simple it becomes. You can literally, I've got this on I went to Harbor Freight and I got one of these dollies for like 79 bucks or something like that before tax. So, and then I'm just using these bungee cords to hold all this stuff together. And now this thing is mobile. I can literally just, hook my hoses up and walk around with this bucket of concentrated fertilizer, and I can fertilize plants anywhere. I could do my in-ground plants, I can do my potted plants. This makes life so much easier, and if you can get past that little bit of math right at the beginning and you know what you're doing, this is fast, and this bucket of fertilizer will last you a very long time. And if you're following the instructions, you just do what they say. So if it's a half teaspoon coming out of here per gallon, and it says to do it every 2 weeks, then that's what you would do. You'd fertilize it every 2 weeks. I typically like to use a diluted form of fertilizer. So I would essentially use half. Whatever it calls for, I would use half of that. So it says a half teaspoon. I would dilute it to a 1/4 teaspoon. And then I would just do the math based on that in this bucket. And I do that because I grow a lot of things in smaller containers, and sometimes the recommended dosage on here can burn the roots and burn the leaves and just cause problems. So if we dilute it to about half of what they say, we know our plants are gonna be okay. They're still gonna get the nutrients that they need, but basically we're not taking the chance of killing all of our plants, especially when it's hot out. If you fertilize your plants when it's hot out, it can really do some damage. So diluting the fertilizer is a really good idea. But like I said, if you guys have any more questions about anything to do with this system that I have going on here, and you don't have to make this mobile, it doesn't have to be on one of these dollies. You can hook it up to your house, whatever, especially if all your plants are in one area and you're not needing to move this thing around a lot. Then just hook it up to your house and have it constantly going. You could dilute it even more to where you could just every time you water, fertilize your plants that way, so you never have to touch anything. But anyway, I'm getting all over the place now. Essentially, this thing is super easy to use. Just get past that beginning math. You can watch that one part that I'm talking about over a million times. That's the great thing about this video being online, and figure this out. It's gonna make your life so much easier. It saves me hours, literally hours of fertilizing plants. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Send this video to any of your friends who might be interested in this. It's gonna save them a lot of time. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, check out theamericanfigcompany.com, where we sell a lot of cool fruiting plants, and I'll see you guys in the next one.